His name is Olamide, right?
Ayomide.
Olamide.
And I like how you're good at our names, by the way. I don't know if I told you that. I like that. Ayomide is still in the past. Your internet it won't let you be great. Ayomide. Why are you smiling? Why are you batting your eyes? Please, I'm beyond seduction, okay? Is your internet... When I say A, say B.
Nancy's trying to drink her coffee in peace. Just
wait, hold on. When I say A, say B.
I am drinking my tea.
I love your mug, by the way. I should have brought my own mug. I mean, when I say A, say B.
To do it properly, it's A, B, and then you say C. It's not just A and B.
Okay, A, B.
No. One person says A, the other person says B, and then the third person says C. Okay. That's how you can calibrate.
He's a psychiatrist, yeah, he's good now. You can tell he's a psychiatrist. I mean, like, what's this picture showing you? Is he a rabbit or Jesus? I'm really in for a treat. Let me just let you know, this woman is amazeballs. So, Nancy, I don't know if you have any questions for us before we get started. And she's
laughing at your joke, so I suppose that counts for something.
Trouble.
I was blazing, yo.
Yeah, I'm gonna get in trouble for that. I'm gonna pay you back. Nancy, by the way, this is a middle-aged friend of mine who's, always, I don't know how we become friends because we're
going ageist, are we? We're going ageist.
Where else can I hit you below the belt? So this is my middle-aged friend who lives in a third world country called UK. Not Ukraine, not to be confused with Ukraine. His internet sucks, and that's not the only thing that sucks about him. He's an Apple lover. Nancy, don't tell me you like Apple too.
Friend. I do.
Okay, it's okay. I mean,
Nancy, don't tell him. Don't tell her.
Nancy, for you, I'll make a one-time exception because you're lovely. That's it. And I know you have more than good things that kind of counter. I mean, there are so many vices. It's kind of hard to find it. Where's the sweet spots to kind of say you want to like somebody like him? But Jesus has paid the price for us. But that's why we're still friends. So this is Ayomide meet Nancy, and I met Nancy through Chu, another podcaster.
Hello, Nancy.
Hello, Olamide.
Your name Ayomide. My joy has come. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, my joy has come. That's
beautiful. Not Tolanis, unfortunately.
Ayomide. I love it. It reminds me of Coffee Olomide.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Olumide
that's how I'm relating it.
So Olumide
means God has come. Go ahead.
Olumide means my God has come.
Mm-hmm. You're also from Nigeria?
Sadly, yeah.
Not just God, my God has come.
Yeah, he's Nigerian, but he could be alien. He could be alien.
I love the laugh here. It's real. I love it.
Hi there. Welcome to the More Sibyl podcast. This is a podcast for Blacks, Asians, and those who love them. I am Mo, and I am your host, ready to spark your curiosity as I take you on this adventurous ride of exploring cultures through the stories of my guests from all over the world. On this show, we get really personal, discussing salient issues that are relevant to our contemporary age and also building community around them. As our guests exercise courage and vulnerability in sharing their life's experiences, we hope that in turn you are inspired by them and that you get the courage needed to set your own stories free. Enjoy the ride, and thank you so much for listening.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Mo and
Ayomide.
All right, so guys, today
you didn't see that coming, did you?
You didn't see that coming, guys. We have prepared for you. You know how we always say that we want to represent a lot of diverse voices on the show and have it more amplified? Today is not different. So let's begin. Most of us have a picture in our minds when we hear the word immigrants. For some, it sounds like a dirty word. For others, it signifies someone with a dream, a dreamer. today on the podcast, we have someone who was born and raised in Zambia, Africa. Shout out to all of my Zambian people that have been on the podcast. But she later migrated to America and settled in New York, where she has lived for 20 years. She has over 15 years of experience in the financial industry and currently works as a financial center manager. Guys, this is a big deal because I know for a fact that she works with one of these Fortune 500 companies, one of the major financial players in the US, actually across the world. As a dreamer, she has and continues to have a passion for making substantive bonds with audiences and also helping people to inspire them to reach for their dreams. Being an immigrant has been one of her life's most challenging and extraordinary experiences, so much so that it inspired her to start her podcast called Concrete Pastures, an African Immigrant Story. And guys, if you haven't tuned into that podcast, you're missing a lot. Not because I featured on it, but she has such amazing stories and she's also been very vulnerable. And you guys know how big we are on vulnerability on the podcast, right? So go catch her podcast and I'm going to tell you more about it towards the end of this episode. But still stay with me. There's still plenty more where this came from.
But also because you featured on it.
Just because I featured on it. I'm just stop cutting to my thoughts. Pinocchio. I was that Gepetto voice. Well, her platform is a platform to reach out to fellow immigrants and dreamers. And her goal really is to provide a platform for herself and others to share their stories as they deconstruct the worldview of immigrant status, unlock the joys, laughs, and bravery that being a dreamer brings about. Everyone, please join us in welcoming Nancy Mulelwa Siisii to the podcast. Let's see. I've never met a non-beautiful Zambian. Like, what's with these people? Your smile, your skin is always popping. Is there something about the Victoria Falls or whatever it is that selling that place that's making you guys?
There's a busy river. The fish that we eat.
There's just something. You guys are always so beautiful. I mean, it was Mongu, it's Grace, and it's you, and it's Chulu.
Thank you.
Strong women, strong,
it's
amazing
the sun
women.
After the equator, the sun just hits.
Probably.
Yeah.
So, one thing I do as a co-host is whenever I find somebody coming on the show, I just stoke in as much as I can of them so as to find questions to ask that haven't been explored yet. And we hope that during the course of the next few minutes or so, we do a good job of your story because I know you have so much to you, and my fear is that I won't have enough time. But in the next minute or so, let's just start with the beginning question, which I'm already sure you saw coming. Zambia to US. Tell us how that happened. Now you can skip the whole you didn't swim across the ocean, you flew on a plane. This might be spoiler alert, flew across the plane. But tell us about your life and experiences before the US. And it's so humbling because I do know for a fact some of your experiences because I listened to your episode on that. But for the sake of those who don't know about you, can you tell us a little bit about your life and experiences before you made the move to the US?
Yes. So my I was raised by very in the rural area in Mongu, actually in the western side of Zambia, for starters. And my grandmother helped raise us. I have two sisters. It's three of us. I'm the firstborn. And on my father's side, I used to have two brothers. One passed away. I have a younger brother now. And during that time, I mean, my mom was out in the city, which is our capital city, Lusaka, going abroad to buy goods to supply to wholesalers. And that's how she was taking care of us with my grandmother. And also during that time, my grandmother was feeding us by going to buy milk in the morning. She'd wake up at a crack of dawn, 5 o'clock. She'd go get milk at the deli, which is like, it's just outside the milk, the cows. And then she buys a bucket of milk. By 10 or 11 o'clock, she was done. She would come home and buy and actually make fritters, which is fried dough. Oh, yes. I think about it now, I want to eat them. Even though they're not so good for me now. But we grew up.
Is it kind of like puff and mandazi like the Kenyans will have?
I don't know what puff is.
It's kind of like mandazi, like the fried dough, like the dough rice and you fry it. It's puff. Kenyans will call it mandazi, but it's the same concept, Yeah.
Oh, I think we all have the same foods.
Stuffed and fluffy. Yes.
Yes.
My dear puff.
I was going to say, this sounds like puff puff.
Yeah. So, during the time of my grandmother's house was made out of clay, and oh my God, the thing is, when you grow up so rural, you don't even realize how rural it is. So when I used to play, we had no toys. So I would go to the grocery stores that we used to have around. There would be a teller, the teller that used to make clothes, and those pieces of clothing that she would cut off, I would grab those, make an outfit out of those things. I would sew them together, and then I would come home, make it some type of like a door out of grass. So I would take the grass out, make the hair as the roots. And I was so, I would have such an imagination that now I look at kids, I'm like, oh my God, they really don't really have that type of imagination like when you are growing up in a rural area or somewhere in Africa. Because you improvise on whatever you have, you use those things. And I would get like taps of toothpaste, like Colgate toothpaste, and I would imagine the top of it as the toilet, because my mom's older brother used to live in a house with electricity, and from time to time we would go visit. So he had a flushing toilet. We would go, and I would just imagine that. My imagination was wild. I lived in my head completely. Okay. And it was my way of escape for in a way, because when you're young, you don't like a lot of things. I didn't like eating dry fish. My grandmother loved. I used to think she loved, but I think that's what she could afford because it was cheaper, unlike buying meat. So when meat was around, well behaved. Today's midday, because we would all be eating in one plate. I had my uncles, aunties, my sisters, so we would be eating in one plate. So if you miss lunch, that's it. You miss dinner, that's it for you. 8 o'clock was bedtime, and from there, my mom bought my grandmother a house. So this house, again, I tell a lot of this on my podcast, but I emphasize on this because it was a time where we saw a change, and it defined the type of person I became. When she bought the house, a little bit after that, I was in 6th grade. My mom took us when it was time for me to go to 7th grade. We came to Lusaka. I didn't experience the city that much, to be honest, right away, because my mom, again, traveled a lot. So we were mostly with our housekeepers. So my mom decided, you know what? It's 3 girls. I'm going to take you to boarding school. So I spent 5 years in boarding school, which was the best time, actually, of my life. Yeah. I think it was the best time of my life. It shaped me in a way that I was very independent. It has its pros and cons.
Yes.
So it shaped me that I was too independent. And then I learned a lot of life skills. When I went there, I didn't have my period. I experienced my period through seeing other people. 7th grade, I didn't know what it was. One time someone is sitting, they are bleeding. I'm just like, what is that? Nobody sat me down to explain to me what that is. So I had to learn through trial and error, I guess, for myself, and watching other kids go through life.
Yep.
So periods, and then my boobs took long to come. I looked like I had my tomboy. Yes, I had my tomboy moment.
Did you shave your hair too? Because I had to shave.
I have a picture. My hair was like very short. My hair was very short. Yes, I had my I have a picture.
I was just like, frankly, in those days, I was just like a boy.
Yeah. And
is there a picture you'd be happy for us to share as part of like
how can I show
podcast?
you? Please.
I beg.
Look at this Aramidale. Jeez.
I know, right? I know.
All right. So obviously, that was a stupid question.
Yeah. So the fact that I ran track. So when you are in sports, for some reason, I didn't realize this growing up because I was just wondering and questioning everything as to why things were delaying. And when I stopped running track, that's when I saw my development started coming through, my boobs showing up and stuff. And then I started to date after that. For some reason, boys were ignoring when you don't have anything showing on you.
What do you have to say about that? I mean, you only want us now when we've grown some peckers. Where were you when we were still trying to come out great?
I have nothing to contribute to this conversation.
So they want to come and pluck where you did not plant. Opportunistic people. Don't mind them, Jerry Nancy. They're all like that.
I when I think about it now, I'm just like, wow, nobody acknowledged me that time when I didn't have anything popping around. Yeah. So after 5 years of boarding school, I graduated when I was home, nothing to do really. And then my mom was still traveling. So I kind of experienced my mom for 2 years, per se. And during that time, she was carrying me around, going to the banks with her. Her bank at that time was Standard Chartered. At that time, when she used to take me, we would go to make deposits. And she would go to the Excel side. I believe that's what they called it. And that was like private banking, would call it here.
The people that have plenty money. Special clients.
Yeah, special client.
Yes.
So when we used to sit there, my mom was not even that concerned. She'll put me in the forefront. Here, you give the money. She's doing her own stuff. They're offering her tea. They're doing all of this pampering, white glove treatment they were giving. And for me, I was just mesmerized by the girl that was taking care of my mom all the time. Like, she was so beautiful, how she was so well put together. I love I love dressing up. I love it's like an armor for me. So I'm sitting there and thinking what I want to do with my life. And I was just thinking I want to get into banking. That was when the thought came to me about getting into banking. And then, I went on with my life. But every time I went, now my mom started sending me by myself. I would ask her a few questions, like how she got there. She's like, I went to college. I have this degree. I'm just like, that's too much work. Then I'm not a good scholar. I don't like school like that. I can study. One thing that boarding school taught me is studying, like having a structure of how you can study. But when I went, when my mom asked me, what do you want to do with your life? I told her I wanted to go to America. Okay, let's get that happen. So we started to work on that. I finally got my visa. Once I got my visa, my mom fell ill. Then that stopped the journey from me going. Finally, my mom got better and the going to America situation came around. But prior to that, one time we have these minibuses in the country, in town. I'm on a bus. I'm so drowned into my own thoughts. This guy just looks at me and he tells me, God has a plan for you. He gives me Jeremiah 29:11 and verse 11.
Wow.
And he tells me, because I was so drowned into my mom's sickness, into me trying to figure out what my life was going to be like, and just depressed as to, I am not doing such a good job with my mom's business right now. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Or if something happens to her, what's going to happen to this business? So once he gives me that, I memorized the verse. And as soon as he gave me that, it's almost instant. The guy was no longer there. I don't know where he came from. I don't know if I blinked, he came out of the bus. I don't even know. I've never shared
Batman you.
That's the thing. I've never even shared it. This has happened only twice in my life.
Wow. I've heard people talk about things like this.
I've heard of this sort of stories.
Yeah.
Sort of angel type stories, right?
Yes. This has happened twice in my life. That was the first time I experienced it. And I looked around to see the person. They didn't show up. Okay, it just happened. Jeremiah 29 verse 11. So I got home. I didn't forget. I went straight to my Bible and I read the verse. So I stuck to that. And even when, no matter how much, because we had told, it was me and my aunt that were supposed to come, my mom's cousin. We had told a lot of our relatives that we were going to go to America, and they started to ask, hey, when are you guys going? So it's also like depressing when someone asks you, oh, such and such got their visa, they left already. What are you still doing here? Blah, blah, blah. So it was just like, okay, this is never ending. When we finally got on board on preparing, we got to leave. So we finally left. I was, again, mixed emotions of the unknown coming to America. I don't know how life is going to be. I was very nervous, and that was stressful for me when I got here. Thankfully, my aunt was here, my mom's young sister. She was here to receive us and to show us around. Yeah, that's how I got here in the short version of it.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's an amazing story. With way more twists than we expected.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the really amazing thing about I read a tweet this week, which is a very interesting tweet. And it was, there's a lot of talk about how Silicon Valley, a lot of the talent is actually immigrants.
The Igbo one.
Yeah, and and there was even one that highlighted a particular ethnic group from Nigeria. But the Igbos. But what struck me was a different tweet that I saw, but related to that, which was highlighting that actually the act of immigration itself is an entrepreneurial act. Right? Even though it's personal, it's literally like, what is being an entrepreneur? It is striking out into something new to build something, that doesn't exist. But that's what we're doing with our lives, isn't it? When we move countries, we're striking out into somewhere new to build a different kind of life for ourselves that before we strike out is only in our heads. Right?
Yeah, that's why I call it dreamers.
It is very entrepreneurial, and I'd never thought about it that way. But I have thought about the fact that there's something about uprooting your life in that sense that it's like nothing else is scary anymore. Like what else? Like you've left your home country, you've left everyone you know.
The greatest adventure.
What does anyone want to scare you with anymore? It's like, bring it on.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
I know. It's like, boo, no.
And your story just really exemplifies that. But speaking of ethnicity, I wanted to ask what ethnicity you are, because we often talk about the fact that Africa is not a country, but we often forget that Zambia is not one people either, right? Nigeria is not one people. None of our countries are one people.
Nigeria is not the only country in Africa.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That one is a different conversation.
When I meet a Nigerian, I'll always ask what tribe you are, even if I don't know. But when I meet a non-Nigerian, I hardly ask about their tribe. I just ask them, oh, yeah, well, because why do we do that, though?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have 73 dialects in my country.
So what's your ethnicity specifically and your language?
So my tribe is Lozi. So I speak Lozi. Even though I'm losing touch. Silozi. Silozi.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Lozi is Lozi.
Right.
So every tribe is from different parts of the country. So we have
like southwest part of it.
So mine is from Western Province.
So
like all of West, so Mongu. So all of Western Province, we speak kind of the same. But right now we kind of blended because of we have people from Angola that migrated during the war. It was closer. Mongu side was closer.
I see. Kind of like we have like French people speaking Nigerians close to the border between, Cotonou and nice.
Yeah. So we have people that speak Portuguese. We have people that speak Luvale. So it's like a whole lot. And the food also in Mongu becomes diverse because different people from different countries.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. But you see, this is the thing, because I'd never heard of Silozi before. But the more we ask about these things, the more we get to know, isn't it? And now I know Silozi, and if I see someone else who's Silozi, I can be like, ooh,
Yes.
I've met one Silozi person, and I'm beginning to. That's now, it's no longer your first time anymore, is it?
No, yeah. Just like, my Nigerian people, once I had someone, the first Nigerian on the podcast, I was like, yes. And now I've had, how many? 3.
Can't even count. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you've moved, right, and you've done this entrepreneurial act, what would you say that and obviously you've shared a few things, but what would you say has surprised you the most? One, about yourself, but also about the US and especially New York. And then third question, which I'm happy to ask again if you don't remember it. What would you say you see differently about Zambia? Because one of the things I think happens when you leave your country is you see it differently, as sort of like an outsider. And because you're also in a different environment, it's I feel like there's a sense in which you see something differently when you stepped out of it a little bit, right? It's like there's some things I don't know about you, but like there's some things you don't know about your family until you go to your other friends' houses, and you're like, wait, you mean everyone doesn't make rice like this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think in the same way, when you leave your country and go to another country, there's things about your country that I think you appreciate more. There's other things that you sort of feel differently about, but I'm particularly interested in the things that you appreciate more that maybe you took for granted. So I think I'm asking a lot of questions at once. So let's start with, what would you say has surprised you the most about yourself and about the US? And then we'll get to the second half later.
Okay. So what has surprised me the most is the ability that I've been able to change myself as I grow through life. I've been able to change through those, to make changes. It's almost like a chameleon, being able to change myself, as if whatever comes against me or comes towards me, or however life hits me, I'm able to change and mold myself into that situation and how I'm able to handle myself. I've toughened up. Toughening up also was from being in boarding school. My independence level was higher, but now I've kind of gone down, because when you are too independent, you kind of scare people away. And I had this mentality of doing things all by myself. A sense of community is important. I've grown to change into having a community. I have so many sisters all over. I may not talk to them every single day, but when something happens, they are there to call me. I call them, and I hope I show up for them the same way they do. But that has surprised me on how I've been able to grow. Like, no matter what I go through, because being an immigrant, you go through so much havoc. It's not all good. We may post a nice picture of me just, looking good that day. A lot of the times, I honestly just love to have no wig on and just have my hair on and just be in my pajamas all day. Those are the days that I'm probably going through something that I have to take care of. I'm a single mother now. It's a whole different change for me. It's a different chapter that I'm going through. I've had different chapters, just like everybody else experiences different chapters in life. Being able to change through those chapters and accepting those chapters as they come. So that has surprised me. And then when it comes to New York, I love New York. Okay.
So you've only lived in New York, correct?
I've only lived in New York. I've visited different states.
I feel like people who love New York are a special group.
They can't even
They're
live.
A special group of people.
It's hard for them to leave and go anywhere else.
Because there's nowhere like that by all accounts.
They just like it. It's kind of like Lagos. There's a trap.
Go on though.
Yes, sorry. I think this is a trap for me. Okay. It's a trap because I've tried to think of I almost moved out of New York, but I'm so used to the fast pace of life that even one time, the few times I've been back home, I've told myself, I'm like, oh my God, how can I come and retire and be in this space when I've been living in such a fast pace? In New York, you go to a restaurant, because I've been to other states, guys. It's not the same, okay?
No.
I go to a restaurant. So you are approached at the door. You sit down. Your waiter is with you the whole time in a lot of restaurants. What would you like to order? All right, you order right away. We went to Ontario. It's right here, Canada. 2 hours. We were just there, like sitting, looking at each other. They bring you bread.
And you didn't leave?
No, the thing is, there were not too many choices, and we were so tired. We're like, okay, we'll just wait. The level of attention and the service that they give, you get so used to all of that. People get very spoiled. So I'll admit I'm spoiled to the New York life. And also, New York has so many opportunities. I'm sure we can find all of these opportunities other states.
Not like New York, though. Not like New York. There's no place like New York.
There's no place like New York. It gives such a vibe that is like so vibrant. I can't even explain it. You have to see it for yourself and experience it for yourself.
Yeah, and there is the heterogeneity of the people, different pockets. I go into a subway. I'm always big on culture, like trying to do like this, genetic profile. Like, where's this person from? I've seen people that have just confused me. Blue eyes, black looking people. I'm like, where? I want to just stop them. Where are you from again? Tell me your, genetic blueprints. You go to Times Square at 3 a.m. in the morning. Don't ask me why I'm up at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, it's like night. Don't be ashamed. Yeah.
It doesn't sleep. The city never sleeps. People are still walking on the street. You can still buy food on the corner. Here in Oklahoma, at 9 o'clock, restaurants are closed. You get at 8:30, they won't serve you. And we don't have enough variety.
That's the part. So you see, that's the part that where we are very spoiled.
Yes.
And my mom came to visit 2005. First, because she was at her peak during that time. So her business was doing phenomenal. So she just came to visit. She's like, okay, listen, this is something to check off. So it was just something to check off her box. I've been to the United States. Okay. So she came, and in that, to come and see her daughter in a long way. I took her around. We went to Times Square, and I remember we were there at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. For her, because of the time difference, it didn't affect her that much.
Yeah.
So we were there, and she was just like, people don't sleep. I'm like, yes, this is the city that never sleeps. And then the subway, the trains, how quickly they move, how people is so congested. Like, she's like, how do you remember where to go? Even though you have a map, I got lost so many times. Okay? Many times.
And Google Maps in New York works differently from my Google Maps in Oklahoma. Because it shows you all the colors of the way the train is. I'm like, are we still in the same US?
Yes, we have the green line, we have the orange, we have the yellow. We have all of these lines.
And the maps are so interactive. It feels like I'm in the future, and Oklahoma is still stuck in the past. Same country.
Yeah, it's the biggest metro that we have.
Yeah,
I think in the States. I mean, it's great living in New York. It's very expensive. That's the only downfall. Everything is expensive.
Bane of all cities.
Yes, trade-off.
And yes, it is a trade-off for sure.
Yeah.
Rent is expensive, food is expensive, and now that we're going through what
Inflation,
we're going through, inflation, forget it. Everything has skyrocketed. I hope we get raises for our paychecks.
Yeah,
but a girl can only do
it, right? You know, you think because they keep killing us at the gas, and then I guess even for your kids, you know, because I know I'm going to explore that in a bit. They get to be exposed to different worldviews, like by virtue of the people they interact with and their neighbors at school and other social settings.
Different cultures.
Yes. So everything ends up paying up for itself. Not everybody can afford to move to New York. I have visited lots of times, and I grew up in a big city in Nigeria, Lagos, and to me, going back to New York is almost like going back home. And I think Oklahoma and Texas has spoiled me. I love big garages. I love to have a big yard and open space, and my neighbors, social distance with my neighbors. New York feels like you can actually pass the cup to your neighbor next door through the window. And I'm like, oh, this is like living. Maybe someday, maybe when I retire, I can have a condo in Manhattan.
Well, you know what? Because you touch on a good point. Because of how I was raised, humble beginning. Yeah. And for me, this is like making up of all my
those times, the extremes,
all of it. So it's like on the extreme level of it.
Yes. So before we get into your family, let's talk about just the jobs you've done here, because amazeballs, you've built your profile in such a way, because I told you I was stalking you on LinkedIn. I know you are a branch manager, one of the biggest financial institutions in the world. Congratulations. I can imagine it took a while for you to get there, and none of the microaggression and the isms that abound in the workplace, you survived. Thank you for showing us the way. Now, can you just tell us about how you went from just being that scrawny little Nancy who moved to the US, about 20-something years ago, to someone who has made it big? How did you make your way up that ladder?
So the beginning of my employment here in the US was babysitting. So I did babysitting and housekeeping at the same time, 6 days a week, taking care of five kids. Ages were 6 months, and I believe the last one, the older one, was
like an au pair.
7. Like it was a whole,
like an au pair, like a au pair mechanism. Like, did they pay you like an au pair?
Yes.
Au pair, whatever they call it. Okay, was it for a American, like white American, or?
Yes, this was white American Jewish family.
Oh, okay. That's definitely the culture and the religion. Were they Jewish as a religion as well?
Yes, they were Jewish and religion. So you had
Hasidic Jews, or just?
I had to remember.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say Hasidic to that
Jews.
Extent.
Okay,
I wouldn't say to that extent. They observed
Sabbath. Okay. Shabbat, okay, all right.
Because they didn't go to the synagogue.
Okay.
But they observed the milk.
The Yom Kippur and all that. Okay.
So you cannot mix the whole thing.
Those two things, yeah.
Yeah. So it was very interesting. And for me, it was shocking, to be honest with you, that someone had 5 kids. I came from my grandmother. My grandmother had 8 children. And that alone, I was just like, okay, that's the norm for Africa. But here in the US, from what I was taught even in school, it was like 2 kids is the max. And it was shocking to me to see that she had 5 kids. And they were even in talks to having a 6th one. Because, hey, they have money and they could afford it. Their house was, they lived in a mansion, like, to say the least. I can't even describe it in
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So each child had their own room, to say, and then the parents.
In New York City?
Yes. Each child has their own room. And then they extended it to the other side where they actually made a 7th quarter, like for me to have my own.
What century was this? Was it during the slavery era? So just kidding.
For me to have a 7th quarter and stuff. the other side, the old side, they had the 7th quarter. So I slept downstairs. They were upstairs. So it was a lot of shock. So I did that for 6 months. I traveled with them. My first travel was to Puerto Rico, which I was questioning so many questions because I didn't know Puerto Rico was part of, the U.S. territory. Yes, yeah. Being that I was on a visa, I didn't know if they would let me through when I came back. So I ended up going with them. And where we went to stay, there were rumors that Whitney and Bobby stayed there. It was a very fancy hotel. I think I had the best tuna sandwich in my life there. So fresh and the best. So from that, and then the next trip we had was in Florida, which was Miami South. Everything was, money, everything. But that experience, it was so bad for me in a lot of ways, but it taught me also a lot to appreciate where I am today, because I really needed to go through that. I guess God does certain things that at the time, I'm just like, why am I going through this? And this is not the America that I was promised to have. Because when people were talking about babysitting and housekeeping, they make it so simple for people that it's just like you are dusting off. You know how like when they are doing the advert to dusting off? No, you're scrubbing floors.
For 5 kids and the youngest being 6 months.
Yes.
Dang.
You're scrubbing floors, you're cleaning toilets, you're making beds,
diapers. Yeah,
you're dusting and changing diapers and bathing.
Tutoring too, dropping them from school.
Yeah. So you're doing all of these things. So it's not an easy job like people describe it.
Yeah. Did they pay for each of the kids? Like times them?
It was $350 for 6 days. I went on Monday morning. I came back home for a few hours on Sunday. I would get home since it was far. It was in Long Island. I would get home maybe around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. So I only went home, to be honest with you, so I can just eat my own food, first of all, and just a break from the screaming of the kids, playing with the kids, everything else. I needed to go home to be with my aunt just with my familiar, environment at that time. So from that, my body started giving up by itself. It was too much work. I was getting stressed. I didn't share anything that I was going through. My boss was not the nicest person. She was going through her own thing. It's too many kids. You're managing kids, you're managing a marriage, and you also want to manage yourself. And then there's also a new person in your house. So all of those things she was managing, and all of her stress was coming off to me. And I did not deserve it. And I didn't share that with anybody in our house. So I kept everything to myself. During that 6 months, I got very sick, very, very sick. I suffer from tonsillitis from time to time. So I was home for a week. I told my boss I'm sick. She asked me, you need to find somebody to cover you. That time my aunt happened, one of my aunts, because I have two. One of my aunts happened not to be working. I think she was on holiday. Her boss was on holiday, so she was home. So she went to cover me. My boss did the same thing that she was doing to me, to her.
To your aunt.
So my aunt then found out what was truly happening in the house. It's like, okay, why haven't you? So when she was coming, this was so funny. More, all of you, this was so funny. So it's a week after. So she's coming on Sunday. I opened the door downstairs because I already know what time she's coming. So I opened the door. She's coming downstairs. She's coming upstairs. Why didn't you tell me your boss was so evil?
Wow.
Why is she yelling all of the time?
Wow. And let me imagine you were just maybe the money you were even saving was actually helping the family, and you didn't want that to affect, the flow of things. You just took it upon yourself. Let me just sacrifice this, even though I'm not comfortable here. Like a good African child, right?
So the thing is, when I came, my dad had passed away in 1998. So I had a younger brother. He was 4 years old. Thank you. I think he was 4 years old when I left. So I took upon that responsibility for me to take care of him. And at the time, I also had my other younger brother. Yep, black tax. So I also had my other younger brother. So I was taking care of them. Because it started from back home. Even when my mom used to give me money, which she used to, I would buy clothes for my little brother. Instead of me using the money, I would give it to my little brothers. So that responsibility, I was like, you know what? I'll just push through. Let me get some experience. Plus, also, I didn't want to feel like I failed myself. I chose to come here. I need to make sure that I can make it through. Like, what am I going to do if I go home? When I finally went back to work after I got sick, I went and told my boss, I'm like, I got together with myself. I'm like, you know what? I cannot do this to myself. I'm sure I can find another job that's less stressful than this. I told her I'm going to be leaving in 2 weeks. At that time, they had planned a trip to go to Miami. So during that time, we go, she tells me, when I tell her, she's like, oh no, listen, I need you to come with me to Miami, but I don't know how I can take care of these kids. I'm like, okay. I committed to going with you, so we're going to go. The day comes to go to Miami. And then I remind her again, because there was nothing written. I remind her again, and I told her, remember, when we come back from Miami, and we were going for exactly 2 weeks. When we come back from Miami, I'm quitting. That's it. I'm not coming back. This lady changes her mind, or she plays like the amnesia moment, which I hate when people do that. And I felt like I was being taken advantage of. Yes. The thing is, I can't deal with people who all of a sudden have amnesia. When I told you
selective amnesia.
Yes, like selective amnesia.
When it's time to do their bits.
Yeah. Oh, did you say that?
It pisses me off. So she tells me, oh no, you never told me you were leaving in 2 weeks. You have to give me a month or 2 weeks again from now. I'm like, you cannot, like, I was so angry. And the fact that the respect where I came from is so big, I couldn't talk back to her. So I'm just bawling my eyes out. She took my passport because we had to use ID at the airport. So that was my only ID. So she she took my passport.
In the UK, that would be modern slavery. That's what that would clarify as.
Yeah.
She told me at home, let me not even forget. She tells me, she's like, if you don't give me 2 weeks, I'm not going to pay you. I already worked. I already gave you 2. I told her, I'm like, listen, again, when we go home, this is the last time I'm working for you. I'm very unhappy. I'm very stressed. I'm tired. I cannot take care of your 5 kids for you. She tells me I'm not going to pay you. Then she hit my core, and I told her slavery ended a long time ago. She was just like gasping. She's like,
triggered.
And then she told her friends, she's like, can you believe what this girl told me? I didn't care how I didn't care at all. At that point, I didn't care. She could have called whoever, the marshals, whatever. I didn't care. Pay me my money. I worked for it. It's not for free. I love your kids, but I'm not going to take care of them for free. We get home. She holds my passport. She gives it to her husband, and her husband goes and sits in the car. Me and her are going back and forth about my passport. Or she says, I'm going to call immigration. I'm like, I didn't come here without a visa. I came here legally. If you want to call immigration, you go ahead and do that. I finally decided to go outside to go talk to her husband. I asked him, please, can you give me my passport? He just hands over my passport. I was so angry at myself. I'm like, why was I battling this? Yeah. So I ended up giving her the 2 weeks anyway. Don't blame me. I had to do it. I had to live in the right way for the kids. So I got I left. I gave my 2 weeks. She apologized during that 2 weeks to me on how she was treating me the whole time. Also, in a way, she was trying to kind of win me over to stay. But I had made up my mind already. Once you've showed yourself to me, I give a few chances, but I gave away too many chances for me to forgive her and stay. I forgive her, but I'm going to stay very far from you. But again, like anything, you get tired of it. And my goal at the core of me, I really wanted to get into banking. I wanted to do something other than just that was not my life, to be a babysitter. For some people, they just make it as their life. For me, it was not for me.
It was a temporary bus stop on the way to where you were heading.
Yes. So with that, I quit my job. I stayed home for 2 weeks. And then something kept telling me about going to Bloomingdale's. Every time I passed by 59th Street, it was telling me, you gotta go. I took a train, went to the human resources, again, with this resume situation. So I got there. I asked them, like, do you guys have any openings? Oh, she's like, yes, we do have openings. We actually have an opening upstairs. You go talk to the manager upstairs. Guys, I ran upstairs. They asked me, do you have a resume? I'm like, I forgot it. I had to improvise. So I was like, I forgot my resume. He's like, okay, what can you do? I'm like, I have experience with cash and handling the cashiers, customer service, of course. So I was like, okay. Well, they asked me a few more questions. They interviewed me. I guess my personality came through. So they had me on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
I went home jumping, skipping. The same day, they told me, go do your drug test. I'm like, yes, please give me the paperwork. I went to do the drug test.
I'll pee right here and right now.
Yes. I went to do the drug test right away. Right. Oh, my God. I was skipping. I quit McDonald's. I give them my 2 weeks. This time I had to do it the written way. So this way nobody is telling me things. So I gave them my 2 weeks.
Once bitten, twice shy.
Yes. So I gave them my 2 weeks. And that started my resume. And then I started to work for Bloomingdale's. In Bloomingdale's, one day there was a guy from Citibank opening up accounts for employees. So he was downstairs. I happened to see him. I went to him and I asked him how to open up an account. This was the first time I opened up my account.
Wow.
And then
like a bank account.
I
just want to point out the irony that it took you that long to open an account and now you're working like a foremost bank.
Yeah, this was
like,
the
look
first
at
time.
God.
How are you saving your money? Were you using piggyback all this while?
I was putting it in my suitcase, honey. This is what the thing is. My community. I was only advised as to you can only open up an account when you have your social security number, you have your green card, you have your papers.
Information.
So I didn't even bother to go to the bank myself to go find out because I took whatever they told me at face value. I trusted them. They've been here long enough and I didn't even do my own research. So I went to the guy. I asked him if I can open up an account. Like, what are the qualifications? He told me your passport. That's it. And the fact that you work here. I'm like, oh, okay. That's how I got my first account. And I decided to ask him about Citibank. He told me, oh, we're actually hiring. He helped me. So this is what he did. He said, come over to my house. Let's build a resume together. He's from Senegal. Let's build your resume together. You have McDonald's, you have Bloomingdale's, you have customer service, you have cashiers, you have cash experience. Because that's what we look at when we're trying to hire someone. What experience do you have? So either one of them, sometimes we can hire from just customer service or cash experience, depending on the position you want. I was going at the first level, which is a teller. we went on Google. We looked up questions on how to interview. So he was asking me those questions on how to respond and how I was responding. I was nervous as hell. I never owned a suit. Mind you, back home, I had so many suits. Coming here, I was leaving those suits. I was like, I'm going to buy more stuff in America and all of that. And then I come here, I need a suit. What did I wear for my interview? I wore a top. It was long sleeved and it was low cut, showing a little bit of a cleavage. And I had pants that had, like, you could barely see. They had detail. They're more like tuxedo pants. But on the line of the tuxedo, they had like little holes in it. It was very, very, very stylish. A little bit tight. Plus, I'm tall, skinny at that time. So everything was like holding. I go to the interview. I do well on the interview. They were going to hire me right away. So this point I'm sharing. It matters how you show up. So first impression. So I do well. They love my personality. They love everything except how I was dressed. And then
cleavage were showing.
The cleavage was not even showing that much because I've seen a lot.
For that setting, maybe.
But that setting, and I was interviewing, I didn't even realize, I interviewed with the regional manager who manages all the banks in that area and the manager of that location. So they love me. That's the feedback they gave the person that referred me. He took me to H&M that evening, get me a suit. And regional manager, because they loved how I interviewed, they sent me to another location to go interview with that location. They also needed someone. So he got me a suit. I wore that suit to my interview the next day, passed it. I got the job right away. And that's how I got into banking from that point. So my first banking...
You have like the craziest experiences, honestly.
We don't questions. We don't need questions. I can just give you the mic and have it just tell us everything.
We're podcasters.
You render us useless, Nancy. Thank you very much. It's like, why do you even summarize? She said everything. But sorry, go ahead and everything. I just want to read that comment.
Yeah. No. It's just, I'm reminded of something I saw again, obviously, I was going to say something I saw on Twitter, and I was just thinking, this is how you can tell that I'm on Twitter a lot. Something someone said about, you have to be, if you're moving. No, it wasn't on Twitter. It was something I saw Denzel Washington say. I think it was Denzel Washington or Morgan Freeman. That if people see you struggling, they will help you. But if you're just sitting down doing nothing, then they'll just watch you or walk past you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just basically what your story is about. Like, the more you put yourself out there, right? It's almost like you were making your own luck in a way. Because I'm pretty sure none of that would have happened if you just sat back and hoped something would happen. It was as you were going out and, sort of stretching yourself and putting yourself out there. And then you ran into all these sorts of, seemingly random encounters with people who just step in and just lift you up, in just the right moments.
Yeah, no.
And that's really amazing.
That's well said. That's well said. It's exactly that. But throughout my life, I think it's everything that nudges me. No matter how much I try to ignore it, it just continues to nudge until I react to it. Like, literally, Bloomingdale's was just like nudging because for some reason, my first job that I wanted was Macy's, not Bloomie's, because I never shopped in Bloomie's. It's too expensive for me. compared to Macy's, it's a little bit more affordable. They have a more variety compared to Bloomingdale's. But Bloomingdale's kept coming in the picture. The first time I saw it, I liked the decorations. They have very beautiful decorations during the holiday season.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
The windows,
Same thing with Macy's.
Saks Fifth Avenue too, yeah.
Yes, the whole Fifth Avenue is just so attractive. It's beautiful in New York during the holidays. Very beautiful.
People travel from all over, and you can go skate at Bryant Park.
Oh my gosh.
I have done that.
Center.
I have done that. Been there, done that.
Yeah, I know, right? Check back.
So, I'd like to take us back.
Okay.
To something, I asked earlier, which is, and literally, I'm taking you back because I want to ask you about Zambia.
Okay.
And it's the question I raised earlier because I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on that. So one, do you think you'll be going back? And if so, what would that be that would take you back? But two, what do you see differently about Zambia? And about, your part of Zambia, where you grew up, your upbringing and all of that you have a new appreciation for that you didn't have until you left. So obviously I'm sure there's some things you appreciated while you were there. That's not what I'm asking about. I'm asking about the things that you had to walk away to appreciate.
So what would make me go back home? So you guys know already that I have a podcast. So part of the vision, the mission for Concrete Pastures is to give back to my country. Growing up rural, you get to see a lot of poverty and you get to see so many kids, like my primary school where I went to, where I started my first grade, kids didn't have school bags, didn't have books, didn't have uniforms, didn't have, they lacked in a lot of areas. So what will make me go back is giving back to my country, to those kids that have no schools during rainy season. They don't have a roof, so they have to wait till the rainy season is over. I'll be able to give back. I love my country. Like I told you, it's a little bit on the slower pace than I've gotten accustomed to. When I retire, my dream is to live in South Africa, Cape Town. That's my dream. I want to continue to visit Zambia, which is my home country, and I want to contribute to the growth. And I want to contribute to the growth on how I want my kids to see the country. And my contribution to it is through the mission of Concrete Pastures, to be able to inspire others, to be able to inspire little kids to give back, give them books, give them school bags, uniforms, give to hospitals even. So that will make me go home. And then, how do I see Zambia now? I haven't been home since 2016, and I was only there for like a week because my mom was very sick. I spent a lot of my days in the hospital with my mom. There's a lot of growth in Zambia in a great way. We have a lot of malls. I was very surprised to see a lot of malls. When I left the country, we only had one mall, which was Manda Hill. It's called Manda Hill. And now they have so many malls. And for me, I was just like, wow, people have so much money to have all of these malls. Because when I went to one of them, to a few of them, they were empty. So my sisters that are on the ground, they tell me people have money. It's always been like that in Zambia. people do have money and there's people who don't have money.
Yeah. The gap is so high too sometimes. It's so wide between those two things.
Yes. So the gap is so high in between, but now they're saying that there's a middle class. So
erosion. Where's that middle class? It's like the G-spot. Nobody ever finds it. Sorry, that's like a joke I shouldn't make on the podcast.
I mean, I would love to see that, like the middle class. So people are making money, but also there's a lot of development from outsiders that have come to develop the country. But I would love to hear our own people in my country saying that we are benefiting from the outsiders coming here and developing our country. I would love to hear that, but I don't know if they are. So in terms of development, I can't really speak too much on it. What I appreciate about my country is I didn't appreciate the tourism aspect of it. So when I went in 2012, I took my soon-to-be ex-husband to meet my family. I was a tourist, literally. We went to the Victoria Falls. We went to so many areas that I'd never gone because I took it for granted. When we went to see animals, like for the first time, we went to a national park, inside the national park. Before I left the country, it was going and watching the animals behind, the gated thing at the zoo, the same way like we do here. So I got to appreciate my country in that way. And they're just a simple life of everything is slower, but I can only deal with it for like a month.
Yeah.
Like a month. I mean, 10 years from now, probably I'll change my mind and say I need a slower pace. Maybe I'll go to my country and stay there. So I don't know what God has in store for me. But for now, me and God have been talking. SA and Cape Town.
Yeah.
We are good. And I'll visit my country.
But isn't it amazing that we have that luxury, right? Kind of like that proverbial monkey to swing from one continent to another, and knowing that we can always still find our home anywhere we go, right?
Yeah.
That fluidity. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm not so I'm not one of those people, I guess, because again, boarding school, I bring it back to boarding school.
Girl, independence. I can live on a tree. I can live anywhere. I should stop saying tree because I'll just keep giving more ammunition to those people that think Africans live on a tree. I mean, I can live anywhere. I can abase and abound when needed.
I easily adapt. So,
girl, we're like twin sisters. Like, my goodness.
Yeah. So, for me, really, Africa is my home. I would say. So if tomorrow I meet someone from a different country other than Zambia and we decide to go live in their country, I'll be home. That's home for me. New York has been my home for a very long time. And it's going to be home for me for a long time because now my kids are smaller. So I have to be here, let them experience their own country. And then when I retire, hopefully soon, I can, live in that space of going to another country. My home country is always going to be home.
Amen, sister. Amen. I'm kind of winding down, but I think this is a very critical point in the podcast where we explore another side of you. Oh. And so, let me say this way. I know you're going to probably have a lot to say, and I think it's also very important that you don't say too much because I don't want you oversharing and then you get into that vulnerability hangover and it's like, oh my gosh, I said too much. Because we tend to have that influence on people. It's just something that we are. So let's talk about your marriage. And I think I'm at liberty to just say I know a little bit about that because you've shared it on your podcast. It's nothing that is not out there already, right? So for those who are wondering, we're not going to say everything. You have to go listen to that podcast. She's going to have the assignment already for you guys. So maybe just walking us through how you met. And I know you were also in a multicultural relationship in the sense that your husband wasn't from Zambia. And then you have, biracial kids. And I think you're telling one of your daughters speaks Russian. And I'm like, well, Zambian, and Russian. And, so let me just tell us how you guys met and the acceptance from both sides. Because those are two parts of, the world you don't really expect to meet, but something beautiful. Actually, two beautiful things came out of that. And then the separation. And what that has been like for you, especially being an African woman, not in Africa currently, but the cultural, mores follow you wherever you go. How has life been, and just how you'll be able to get to that point of this is, what it is? Because I think one of the things I'm learning, and I think Ayomide shared a book with me, Stay by Jennifer Hecht, talking about how life is not perfect, it's not fair. We should stop trying to make it perfect. Just enjoy the moment, and whatever comes out of it, try to find some meaning in it. So again, let's start with your marriage to your husband, and then the separation and how life has been like for you since then.
So we met pretty young. So September 13, when I started with Citibank, is when I met him. And I remember when he came in, he
Take your time.
Ooh, I didn't know this would catch me.
Do you wanna talk about it? We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. Do you
No,
want
we can talk about it because it's something that I've shared.
Okay.
So when I first saw him he had forgotten his green card. And during that time, oh my goodness.
Boys with boys. I mean, why is your gender just like that? What would you guys do without us?
I know, right?
Who runs the world,
I didn't know this would catch me. When you think you're done with something and then it just catches you off guard.
I know.
This is the moment right here.
Yeah.
Sending you hugs.
It's all right. Just take your time.
Hugs.
I receive it, sis. I receive it. Yeah. So when we first started at Citi, they asked for all your paperwork. I produced everything. He came in late. I found out later why he had come in late. He had gone out, and he said he had gone out with his boys because he was starting a new job. He was kind of like celebrating, I guess.
Yeah, sure, this guy is not African, because coming late, I forget that. I mean, I can play that stereotype because I'm African, okay? Guys, this is not being...
Mind you, I was on time, I was on time. And you can just imagine how much time I got lost. So the training was in Queens. That was the first day. And then 2 days later, we were in Manhattan. And then he came in. He forgot his green card. He had to go home and get his green card. So that's how I remember him. And then our training was a month training. During that time, we would have you learning how to make deposits, withdrawals, everything. They're teaching you the whole 9 yards of taking care of clients. When I sat like you, how you explained yourself in our conversation, that you like to sit at the front of the class.
Yes,
I'm the same way, because this way, I don't know, for some reason, I receive information much better when I'm in the front.
Yeah, I like being teacher's pet.
Yeah. So the lady, he's according to him, he said he noticed my smile first, so he sat down with me. So we were all sitting in pairs in class. So we sat 2 and 2 and 2. So we were in the front of the class, and for some reason he used to be quicker than me in terms of transactions, and he was very tech savvy. So everything we were doing were very, very fast. The teacher is the one who started this whole thing. You guys would make such a great couple. You guys would make such a great couple. So she kind of planted the seed into this whole thing. And at the end of the month of our training, how did we go? At the end of the month of the training, I was going to college at the time. And I was going to college in the evening. So everybody was going out to drink tequila. They wanted to go do tequilas. I said, no, I have a class. So he escorted me to the subway I was taking my A train to go to school.
Oh, the A train.
Yeah, so he brought me downstairs. We hugged, and that hug, for some reason, we both got emotional. We were nothing to each other at the time. We just had like this chemistry, and that was it. He would bring me white chocolate every single day because he found out that I loved white chocolate, so he'd bring me that every day. I don't even know how I did.
Have you tried dark chocolate?
I have, but the one that I like is probably like milk chocolate.
It's okay. I feel like if you say one more thing, I won't like you anymore because you already have that apple. You're running on thin ice, but it's fine. I didn't hear that part about you liking white chocolate. Go ahead. Skip that part.
So I have, and then from that a month after that we started working in our branches. He was working in Brooklyn. I was working in Harlem. We lost contact. He lost his phone. I don't know what happened with tequilas. He lost his phone. I contacted him, and then he found one of my messages, called me back. I'm like, oh, so what happened with you? So he was like, oh, no, I lost my phone, blah, blah, blah. And then I asked him, I'm like, what are you doing tonight? Whatever. So I guess that was asking him out. According to him, he's like, you asked me out. I'm like, no, this was just a vibe. We were both on the same page, okay? So we met in Times Square. He took me, we went our first date. Fast forwarding to now 15 years later into our relationship. We were together for 7 years, no kids. We did that by choice. So we traveled, we wanted to enjoy each other. We wanted to know each other. We're coming from two different households, two different cultures. And on top of that, we were young and we just had nothing, no money, nothing.
How old were you when you got married, by the way?
Everything. We were in our 20s, early 20s. I don't remember the exact age. But we wanted to spend our time. Because we were the type of people that just got up. Let's go to Boston. We would go to Boston to go have lunch.
The good old days without kids.
Yes, no kids. So when our daughter came around, I personally, he has, I'm sure, a different explanation. I personally didn't know how to navigate those three things together. My daughter, me, my husband, and just the whole situation. And then a career. I was just beginning my career. At the time, I was a supervisor at TD Bank, and I wanted to move up the ladder. I wanted to continue to pursue my career. I didn't want like anything hindering whatever was happening in my career as well, because I wanted a better life for us. And that went on. We had a lot of differences, and then we found a common ground in a way, but still things, if you don't work on your problems or communicate the right way, things will continue to linger and they'll show up at some point. And they kept showing up because we didn't really resolve the issue. We just kind of put it on the side and just dealt with the day-to-day. As immigrants, for me, I thought we can just manage certain things. We understand each other without talking, especially that we were together for a long time. We take that for granted, that we don't necessarily have to communicate. You understand me. We come from the world of finance. You know that I have to move up. For me, it's very hard. So I need to work this much harder to go to
as a female immigrant.
As a female, as a Black woman.
Yes.
I have to mention that.
Yes.
Because there's certain things, like if someone has an accent that's African compared to someone who is Spanish,
blue eyes,
or someone with blue eyes, or someone from Europe.
Not the night workers from
but someone who's from Europe is considered sexy and attractive, and it's acceptable. For me, it's just like, oh, she cannot communicate the right way. She cannot do this. But it's my accent. And on top of that, I have my own insecurity of my lisp. I had to teach myself in so many ways on how to pronounce certain words, how to teach myself. People can't even notice now that I do have
You sound cute, by the way. You sound cute. Very true.
Unless you like listen really hard, you would hear it. It's like, okay. And same thing with the whole situation about even with the podcast. I was resistant to it because I'm just like, okay, I'm going to be exposing myself so much when it comes to my lisp, and there's certain things that I cannot say. They'll come out a certain way on the mic compared to in person. It's very different. So fast forwarding, our second child comes around, and then things, whatever was not resolved, life changed, COVID happened, whatever was not resolved surfaced as well. Children don't change anything. Children don't change your marriage. They bring a lot of joy, a lot of happiness. But if there's any unresolved issues, it exposes that. Yeah. And COVID for us did expose that because we stayed home. We're quarantining. So our demons, whatever demons that we did not take care of, came out. And they came out so bad that we just had to dissolve our relationship completely. All of us are losers in this situation. My kids especially. It was a very painful moment. I had to find a way to heal from it. Being a single parent is not an easy task. I've never wanted to sign up for this. Yeah. Because of how I saw my mom go about it. You said in
your episode that this was something that you were very, very conscious about, not letting your kids go through.
Yes, I really wanted that for my kids. I made sure I wanted to stick it out for my kids. But there was just always something that I felt like I needed to be flushed out. I felt suffocated in my own relationship, and I couldn't stay there anymore. Once I filed for divorce, there was no going back for me. It was just, this is it, I'm done. I need to be able to take care of me and my kids. And to get to that point of healing, it was a journey that was very painful. It was not easy. The shame of explaining to people what had happened. Whether it was my family, my sisters. Mind you, I had so many of my sisters. 2 of my sisters used to call me every single day, including my best friend, every single day. But that cannot heal you completely inside of you. Unless you do your work of forgiveness. I needed to forgive myself for allowing certain things to happen in my marriage, for tolerating and for behaving the way I behaved in my own marriage in front of my kids, the anger that I had. I needed to let go of all of that, the negative energy. I needed to let go of so many things and negative people too. I needed to bring positivity in my life. I was praying, but not praying to the way that I needed to pray. So I needed to go back to connecting with God. My pastor, Fred, came through. Yeah. He really came through for me. When I called him, he only allowed me to talk about myself and what I was going to be doing about myself. Nobody else. I had done therapy I recommend therapy to everybody, but I knew what I needed. Because if I went to therapy, I'm telling you more. I will be talking about my ex-husband and talking about him, how he did me this, how he did me that. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to point a finger. I wanted to point a finger to me and resolve what I had done in my marriage, in my relationship, and how I had failed him and my kids. So taking ownership was very big for me. And then just the culture itself of, I had to unlearn whatever is acceptable of our culture. It's fine. I was okay to make my own rules. I had to accept what was happening now, because aside from dealing with the separation, I have all other things that I was dealing with financially still. Like I lost my savings. So dealing with all of that was so painful. And then my kids were they are still a constant reminder, but now I'm okay with it. I'm able to see, because when you look at my kids, they look like both of us. So I cannot throw away my kids just because. So I cannot really apply hatred on my ex-husband without applying hatred on our kids. Because out of our marriage, out of our relationship, no matter what transpired, we have those beautiful kids together. Without him, I don't have those kids. Without me, he doesn't have the kids. So the road to forgiveness was big for me. I needed to forgive myself, to forgive him, to be able to, even if I meet him today in the streets, I can say hello without having any animosity behind my voice or act childish or anything.
And that's a big point, because I recall in that episode you talked about how when you saw him at the grocery store, you almost had a panic attack. And sometimes when your daughter would talk about him, you would just, this was when you used to go into...
Trigger.
Yes, because she always they were very close, and she would always want to talk about her dad. And I imagine she was also holding back, not wanting to offend mom or dad.
Yeah, and it was so bad. She found me going through pictures, and I was cutting the pictures, either on the computer or with the scissors. She literally held my hand, and she stopped me from doing that because she has a different picture of her parents. She wanted to still see that family. She told me to leave the pictures alone of me, her dad, her, and her brother. So I've left all of those pictures the same way. And even the pictures where there's one picture of me and him that we took, the first picture of me and him is still I left it for her and her brother. Like one day when I'm no longer here, or both of us are no longer on here, they're able to go back and say, these were our parents. So I left that for them, despite whatever, because part of healing, you have to get rid of things that remind you of. So for me, it was my pictures. I couldn't take a look at the pictures. There's too many pictures. We have thousands of pictures. It's 15 years of relationship. So we took pictures everywhere we went. And there's so much stories from those pictures. So I was trying to get rid of the pictures. When she stopped me, I just stopped because she also is going through this, because I forgot that part. That she's also going through a breakup with me and her father as well.
Her father, yeah. And it's funny how even the pictures never break up, even though the people in the pictures might beat, but the pictures are always a constant reminder of a time that is so sore. But how do you preserve your own sanity while at the same time honoring that you might not have worked anymore between your husband, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he's still the father of the kids, and his relationship there. That is quite hard, and I think many people struggle with that.
No, that's why I needed to heal, because you cannot not love your children and then hate the person that helped bring them on earth.
Yeah.
It's for me. I mean, everybody's different. For me, I couldn't find. I'm not the type of person that holds grudges. It's too much. It's like poison for me. Because every time you see that person, you get angry and angry. Because the first time I saw him after the breakup, in the store, I was in the car. I saw him in the store. My physical heart was hurting behind that. It was like painful. So I can't imagine holding a grudge for someone and going through that every single day. Like when you see the person, you're angry. So I refused. I prayed to God. I'm like, I need to take this pain away from me. I need to be able to forgive and move on. I cannot hold on to anger anymore, because it was like controlling me, living in my brain rent free. And every time I was just thinking, and when you think, it makes its own stories constantly, even some things that are not true. So it gets even worse. So I needed to get out of that space to be able to be a better person to myself, to be a better mother to my kids, to show up the right way for my kids.
I just wanted to say, there's something really amazing about what you said, about, and I love the word you used, taking ownership, because it's such a tricky thing to talk about. And I think it's partly because we don't have the right language for it, right? There's this aspect of when something like this happens, and of course, because a lot of times people will blame one person or, and often it's the woman, right?
Yeah.
That a lot of the blame goes to. And that's sort of, and of course it's even worse when it's things, that are like, when it's like traumatizing issues as well, where someone is a victim. But then there's that power in taking ownership, right? Of that actually this is my story.
Mm-hmm.
And actually I get to think about how I'm going to interpret it and how I'm going to understand it and the meaning that it has, that I have agency in that. And that's actually where sort of freedom comes from. But I think it's hard because, especially in talking about it with people, because it's very easy to talk about it in a way that sounds like blame.
Yeah.
And especially because people are often blaming, in fact. So it's
a coping mechanism.
Like
it's actually a coping mechanism to blame somebody else.
How do you talk about it to someone in a way that doesn't come across as blame? Especially when there's a lot of blame actually happening. And I feel like in that word ownership, you've sort of captured that, right? The word I've often used before now was taking responsibility. But, there's a sense in which that still sort of almost sounds like blame a little bit. And I love that word you chose, taking ownership. I feel like that's how I'm going to be thinking about it going forward. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. And for that really wholesome and whole way to think about something very difficult and hard.
Yeah, and I think it also shows the place of therapy. I always tease Ayomide that we should always take a chug of drink every time he advocates for therapy. But actually did his job for him today, showing how amazing you are. And I think therapy also helped you give words to what you felt and understanding that it took two to make that marriage. And you probably, you also, like you said, taking ownership. But I think the most humbling thing was when you said, I also have to consider what I did to him. We don't really think about that in the context because somebody's hurt might be bigger that it did to us, but there's also maybe a part we played in, that situation that we tend to overlook because if your hurt is bigger, then mine should be negligible, but it's still also taking ownership. And I think all the responses you've given to the questions we've asked so far has just been amazing, Nancy. And I really want to thank you for your openness, your vulnerability, and just your beauty even shining through. I know when we did your podcast, I had make this allegro, which I'm going to say, I had made this allusion to the fact that your podcast is titled Concrete Pastures, but you remind me of that rose growing in the midst of thorns, that tiny little weed that busts through on a pavement in New York that is so hard and hot, but there's that grass just growing through the cracks. You've flourished out of so many things you've gone through, and I think it's a testament of just your resilience and also the beauty in you. And so thank you for walking us through the beginning of your life and up until the very moment. And I know that whatever life throws at you, you're more than capable to enough of just overcoming it. But I really want to thank you. Now, before you go real quick, where can people find you, and is there any cause you'd like to highlight today?
People can find me on our platform, which is Concrete Pastures. First of all, we have a website, concretepastures.com.
Okay.
We're soon actually going to be coming up 2 weeks from now. We're working on an app. You can download our app for free for Samsung. So Concrete Pastures.
I didn't hear that Samsung, okay? Android only. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
For now, all of my Apple people, don't worry. Coming soon. Coming
Don't
soon.
ruin that moment for me.
Hey. It's love for everybody. So you get to catch up on all of the episodes. You get to see the videos on YouTube. So we're making it easy. I understand our audience, our diaspora people are super busy. So you get to download the app. You don't have to go on Spotify, Apple. Everything is connected to our app. It's easy. And we have our social media handles are going to be in the show notes, I'm sure, which is we are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Please like our page, follow us, and you get to catch up on everything. Concrete Pastures.
Thank you. I will link all of that in the show notes. Nancy, I have a strong feeling we're going to talk way more after this, as far as,
Yes, please.
Following up. Yes. Can we be best friends already?
Yes.
Bump people off your list, okay? I'm coming for that number. Just kidding. But thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yes. Please come back again.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
This was
guys. Yay. This was a very
Yay.
rich episode, guys, as you can see. Don't forget to share with your friends and let us know. Those DMs and text messages and comments and WhatsApp messages to send about episodes that are really connected with you really go a long way in helping us, calibrate our guests and bringing in, fresh and exciting and also life-giving topics and all that to you. In any event, this has been another episode with Mo and...
I am a day.
That's him trying to buffer like his internet. I am there, please be. Even if your internet is not stable, be stable, please. Okay? Please. Thank you. Well, guys, catch you guys on another episode of the Sibyl podcast. Bye for now.
Bye.
All right, Nancy. We'll let you know when the episode comes out.